Not every squire dreamed of becoming a knight. The title was an honour, yes, but it came with enormous expense. The ceremony required lavish banquets, gifts for fellow nobles, and armour that could cost more than a small farm. Some men quietly avoided knighthood altogether, content to remain skilled soldiers without the crushing financial weight of chivalry. Life inside armour was not glorious. It was suffocating. Helmets stank of sweat and metal, baking under the sun. To cope, knights sometimes lined their helms with herbs like lavender, thyme, or rose petals. This simple touch of comfort offered a small breath of humanity amid the chaos of war. Before modern military salutes, knights used a simple motion, raising 2 fingers to lift their visors. This gesture, revealing the face, symbolised peace and respect. Over time, it evolved into the salute still used by soldiers centuries later. Faith was a knight's unseen armour. Before battle, priests anointed swords and armour with holy oil, blessing them for divine protection. For many warriors, spiritual strength was just as vital as steel and courage. Chivalry was not merely a code of conduct, it was a sacred vow. A knight who fled from combat or betrayed his word could face excommunication from the church itself, condemning his soul as well as his reputation. Honour was more than pride, it was salvation. Certain knightly orders, such as the Knights Hospitaller, believed pain purified the spirit. Members might fast for weeks or wear rough hair shirts beneath their armour, using discomfort as a form of penance and devotion. For these men, discipline was holy. A knight's warhorse was more than an animal. It was his partner, his pride, and sometimes his only friend. To insult a man's horse was to insult his very honour. Chronicles tell of duels fought to the death over such slights. The gleam of a knight's armour came from less than noble methods. Squires used sand, vinegar, and even urine to clean steel, the ammonia stripping away rust and leaving the metal polished to a mirror shine. Behind every shining knight was a hard-working, foul-smelling squire. When a knight fell, his passing was honoured with grandeur. Some funerals included mock battles or tournaments fought in his name. It was both mourning and celebration, a way to ensure his bravery would never be forgotten. In an age obsessed with sin and salvation, dying honourably in combat was believed to cleanse the soul. For many knights, the battlefield was a holy place, a final trial where courage might grant the peace that confession could not. Knights sometimes staged pas d'armes, setting up barriers on roads and challenging travellers to duels for honour. Today, we're pulling back the visor on the world of medieval knights, from their private rituals to their most unusual training techniques. Before donning heavy chainmail, knights slipped into padded linen gambesons. But some didn't stop there. Wealthier knights had their underlayers stuffed or rubbed with fragrant herbs to hide the inevitable smell of sweat and steel. This wasn't just vanity. The fresh scent kept pests away and helped them stay presentable in courtly circles. Training wasn't just swinging swords at hay bales. One of the most iconic drills was the quintain, a rotating wooden target. The knight had to strike it with a lance at full gallop and dodge the sandbags swinging back toward them. Miss, and you might get knocked flat off your horse. A humiliating lesson in balance. Knighthood was expensive. Armour, horses, squires, servants, all could bankrupt a lesser noble. Some knights even took loans or sold land just to afford proper gear before joining a campaign. Being a knight wasn't just a calling, it was a financial gamble. Knights sometimes staged pas d'armes, setting up barriers on roads and challenging travellers to duels for honour. These events could last for days and became almost theatrical, equal parts sport, spectacle, and social drama. Some knights went beyond ordinary vows of loyalty, swearing personal oaths of brotherhood to one another. They exchanged relics, rings, or even pieces of armour as symbols of their bond, a private pledge to defend each other to the death. Armour didn't always gleam silver. Some knights had their suits painted black, red, or even gold to intimidate enemies and show wealth. The richest could afford mirror armour, so polished it flashed sunlight into the eyes of their foes. Knights trained to fight blindfolded, honing their ability to react by sound and instinct alone. This dangerous drill made them deadlier in the chaos of real battle, where visibility was often limited. Not all knights spent their lives in war. Some were hired as private escorts for groups of pilgrims, guiding them safely through bandit-infested roads and charging hefty fees for their protection. Knighthood wasn't just about blood and steel. It was also about culture. Many knights were troubadours, writing love poetry and music for noble courts, proving that a sword hand could also hold a lute. Knights were men of faith, but even they defied the church at times. When the Pope banned the use of crossbows against fellow Christians, knights risked excommunication if they disobeyed. Many, however, still used them in war. Survival came before salvation. When on campaign, knights didn't always have the luxury of a warm bed. Many of them slept sitting upright, still clad in their armour, to be ready at a moment's notice if an attack came during the night. This was uncomfortable, but it kept them alive. Sleeping without armour left them vulnerable, a risk few knights dared to take when camped near enemy territory. Knights trained with weapons intentionally made heavier than the real thing. These practice swords, maces and lances built incredible strength and stamina, so when they switched to their actual gear in battle, the weapons felt light and fast. This clever trick of overtraining gave knights the endurance needed to fight for hours in grueling melees. A knight's warhorse was more than a mount, it was an investment. Some destriers, the most prized of all warhorses, were worth more than entire villages. These horses were trained for combat, able to bite, kick and even strike down enemies with their hooves, making them as dangerous as their armoured riders. Before heading into battle, knights often confessed their sins and received blessings from a priest. Death was always a possibility, and a knight wanted to enter combat spiritually prepared, not just physically ready. This ritual helped calm nerves and gave warriors a sense of divine protection. Some knights were so eager for glory that they went on chivalry tours. These were journeys taken specifically to seek out worthy duels and battles, proving their skill and building their reputation. In many ways, it was like a medieval quest for fame and honour. Tournament armour was far heavier than battlefield gear, designed for maximum protection during jousts. It was so heavy that squires often had to use small cranes or hoists to lift knights onto their horses. Falling off during a joust could be a humiliating and dangerous experience, as getting up on your own was nearly impossible. Knights often carried personal banners displaying their coat of arms, but many also hid secret symbols stitched into the fabric. These served as good luck charms or personal reminders, talismans meant to inspire courage and ward off death. Knights sometimes had relics sewn into their tunics or armour padding. These could be tiny fragments of saints' bones, pieces of the true cross, or blessed charms. Carrying holy items was believed to grant protection and favour in battle. Young boys training as pages, future knights, practised with wooden swords and hay-stuffed dummies called Saracens. These training exercises not only improved skill, but also subtly reinforced the idea of fighting non-Christian foes, preparing them mentally for the holy wars many would one day join. When a knight committed a great dishonour, his punishment could be the public stripping of his spurs. This was a humiliating ceremony where his knightly status was revoked. Losing one's spurs was worse than death for many, as it marked the end of their honour and identity as a knight.